Hello, everyone. You have joined the IASBO, the Indiana Association of School Business Officials 2022 Fall Seminar. This is the seminar on Public Relations and Internal Communications, F120. My name is Jeff Dehler, APR, and I am here to present this session to you in 6 20-minute segments, no less. So watch them whenever it is convenient for you. So we'll start this by, I will share my screen so that you can see some of the presentation that is going on. And I'll start by just telling you a little bit about myself. So I'm an APR. What does that mean? I am accredited in public relations through the National School Public Relations Association. That means that I took a bunch of classes. I went through some testing, and it was all very serious. And it's sort of a mini master's in public relations. But it was very informative, and it helps to inform everything that I'm about to share with you today. I'm an active member of NSPRA, National School PR Association, and of INDSPRA, the Indiana School PR Association. And have been active as presenters there, have been active as a presenter for IASBO, for the Indiana School Boards Association, for other national and state conferences in public relations. And the reason is that I'm old. What that means is I have experience. I've owned my business, Dehler PR, since 2011. And before that, I was a communications director for a school district in Minnesota that had about 12,000 students and about 2,000 employees. And before that, I worked at a county in public information. And so communications is in my blood. And since 2011, starting Dehler PR, we have, for instance, served nearly 30 school districts to help them to market their referenda. We've also helped school districts with communications audits, communications plans, marketing to attract new students, just sort of your everyday run-of-the-mill standard communications processes, such as website, e-newsletters, and social media help with media relations, and all of the other tactical things. So that's Dehler PR and Jeff Dehler. Now let's share what's going to happen in the course of these 6 segments. So this first one is an overview, and we'll just kind of talk about the importance of communications in public schools. The next one is on systems. What systems do you need to have in place in order to be able to be effective in your communications? After that, we talk about inside out. Inside out means start with your staff. They are your frontline workers. We want to make sure that they are up to date on what it is that you are doing in your schools, and that they're all on the same page, because they're the ones who are talking to your audiences, to your parents and other community members. So internal communication, then external communication. We'll have a panel discussion with some of my friends from Indiana School PR Association to talk about media relations and social media. We'll talk about crisis communications, and then we'll apply communications directly to those business officials who are working towards making sure that school districts are running efficiently in the effort of accomplishing your mission, which is educating children. So if you've seen this presentation before, you will see something very similar again. However, it has been updated with some current events, and there's going to be some extra flavor for 2022 that we didn't have maybe in 2021. There's a little notation in the corner of some of the slides that says useful tools. It looks like this. And what you're going to find is that these are the slides, and you'll be able to have access to these slides. These are the slides that you might want to copy and paste and put someplace into your standard operating procedures. So watch for that little icon. So overview, part 1, and why do we communicate? So let me show you some scenarios, and you're going to recognize these. These are happening in your districts, and they are happening in districts all around us. So in Monroe County, they've got a bus driver shortage. That is not unheard of. This is happening to schools across the country. Indiana schools sued over transgender restroom access. Indiana teacher shortage persists ahead of new school year. More than 2,300 open teaching positions for the 2022-23 school year. Are furries for real in schools? Southern Indiana school officials answer social media rumors. This is happening all over the country as well, by the way. So what do all these stories have in common? I'm asking you this question, even though I know that you can't answer me, or at least I can't hear you. You can still answer. What do these stories have in common? There's several things. Here's a couple of them. You need to have a response. And that response has to be from the operational perspective. You need to do something about these things. In the case of transportation, there's not enough bus drivers. So what are we going to do? Well, we're maybe going to consolidate some routes. We'll probably add some length to some of those routes. Have have the existing staff cover all of the routes in a different way. And then communications. In each of these cases, you've got to communicate both to your internal audiences and to your external audiences. So they all have something in common, and those two things are operations and communications, and operations and communications go hand in hand. I like to say that as a communications director, I needed to know a little bit about all of what schools are doing. Everybody else gets to operate in their area. But as a communications person, I need to know something about everything. And your school needs to communicate about all of these different things that are affecting parents, students, staff, and community members. So that's why communicate. But the biggest thing is that you can build trust by communicating. And when you build trust, it means that it might be less likely that people will come to you and say, are there really litter boxes in the back of classrooms? It might be that it will occur to them that this can't possibly be true because I have been being communicated with all along at every step of the way by my school district. My school district is telling me about what they're doing and what's going on. There's transparency there. And so I believe them. So building trust is the biggest piece of why we communicate. More things about communicating, why communicating. It's about the students, it's about money, it's about making sure that people know what we are doing, building morale, and it's just good business practice. In addition to that, we are charged with the most important thing to a family, and that is their children. But many people, maybe at the State House, maybe community members that don't have kids in school right now, they might not know as much about what should be right for children, though they have an opinion. And it's okay, they should have an opinion, and they should be part of our decision-making process. But we need to make sure that that we have our side of the story that is told. We're going to speak up for kids. What should schools communicate? So we have brand messaging and proactive messaging, good news. These are all things that we want to communicate. It feels like we do a lot of reactive communicating. Okay, we found out that we don't have enough bus drivers. We had a number of buses that were late this week. We had school bathroom situations, whatever. There's a lot of things that we just seem to have to react to. We need to spend some time reinforcing our brand and being proactive with good news and being transparent. So first, I want to talk about brand, though, because just a couple words here. Brand is what people think of you and what they say about you when you're not in the room. And so it's factual information, but it's also emotional information. It's how they feel about you. And it's not just about the logo, though the logo does have something to do with your brand, but it's also about, again, that emotion, how we feel about this, what we think of when we see your brand. Here's a couple of very famous logos. You all know what these two logos, which companies these two logos belong to. So it's very easy for us to say, okay, Nike and Amazon. But you also have a feeling, an emotion, a belief in what it is that these two companies provide. And so their brand is, in the case of Nike, they provide elite athletes with the best possible technology when it comes to any kind of athletic clothing, from shoes to other clothing. Amazon, we all know, has just about taken over the world in the ability to deliver something to your doorstep as soon as the next day. Almost anything in the world that you might want can be on your doorstep the next day. And so these are things we think of when we think about and we see these logos, these brand logos. When should schools communicate? It's a multiple choice answer. I want you to go through these answers here and pick which one is the one that you think is the time in which schools should communicate. And by now, you've read all the way to the bottom, and yes, it is in fact all of the above. Referendum crises, when issues arise every day, we should be communicating. I heard a story from a communicator friend of mine that the old axiom that you need to communicate 7 times before someone actually hears you has changed because of the pandemic. Of course, everything has changed because of the pandemic, but now it takes even more times. Some are saying maybe even up to 14 times, because our attention spans are shorter, our lives are busier, our brains are filled with fear and concern and worry, and just everyday stuff. It's a mental health challenge that we have that is causing us to now need messages to constantly bombard us before we actually say, oh yeah, I'm supposed to vote on November 8th. It takes many times of hearing that message, and therefore we have to use multiple channels to reinforce that message, all these channels that we list here. So earlier we talked about operations and communications being tied together. It's because communications is a management function. And so you need your strategic plan and your strategic communications plan to go hand in hand. Your strategic communications plan isn't about just anything. Hey, something really great happened at school. It's about, we have this initiative. We're putting in a Spanish immersion program at our school, and so therefore this year we're introducing it at kindergarten. Next year we're going to introduce it at first grade. And so what am I going to do? I'm going to communicate. I'm going to have, here's a highlight on a teacher in our elementary school who's teaching kindergartners and using Spanish language instruction. And what's the thing that they're going to talk about, and how are children reacting? What do they say? How are parents reacting? Let's tell that story, because that is an initiative that your school district is working on right now. It could be career and tech ed, it could be AP, it could be International Baccalaureate, whatever your focus is, STEM, all those things. Those are the things you should be communicating. But you need to have the systems in place to be able to communicate, and you need to make sure that you've got staff that understand that it's their responsibility to communicate, and you have to give them the tools, train them so that they know how to do this. And then finally, we want to not just have our audiences listen to us. We want two-way communication. We want the ability for our audiences to be able to participate in processes so that they can see their fingerprints on something, so that they know that their schools are doing the things that they feel are important. Now, does that mean we're going to do everything that parents want us to do or that business owners want us to do? No, but they get the opportunity. And if they have the opportunity, that builds trust. So here's a useful tool, and that is some guiding principles that you should have in mind when you're in a superintendent's cabinet meeting, when you are in a management team meeting for your division or department. You need to be true to your vision, mission, and values. Remember that communications is a management function. Listen to stakeholders. Actually listen, and make sure that you are doing active listening, repeating back, yes, I think what I'm hearing you say is, and then make sure that some of the things that parents, if they've got good ideas, let's use those and show them that we're doing that. Clear, concise, consistent communication, over and over, the same message repeated so that people get it and hear it. School building level communication seems to be the most effective. When the district communicates, there are some people that will listen to that. But boy, most, for those of you who have districts that are more than building, and I know that there are a lot of districts that are one K-12 building, those of you that have more than one building, you want to make sure that those principals who are running that school are communicating effectively with their audiences, especially parents and staff. Two-way communication ensures engaged, active, successful communities. We know it's not that easy. We know there are challenges. People aren't reading the messages and language. I mean, there's all sorts of things that are barriers for people to listen in. If you're a parent, you're busy. You don't really have time for all this. You barely have time to make sure that your kid has got enough lunch money in their account. So we've got challenges, and we need to figure out some way to address those challenges. We'll talk more about 3-second, 30-second, 3-minute readers later. So there are some solutions to those issues, and we'll talk more about those as we go through this series of 6 different segments of this presentation. So all of these things in this list of solutions are things that we can reinforce on a regular basis. And so we'll be introducing those at a later time to remind us that these are things that we can do to help us solve some of the challenges of communication. So the bottom line is this: the overall goal of any communications or public relations program is to maintain or increase the reputation of the organization. This is all about the trust. We want to have a good reputation. We know that reputations go by the wayside. Trust is lost quickly and very difficult to build back again. So it's incumbent upon us to very incrementally, slowly, continuously build our reputation through our communications programs. But our communications programs are only communicating about the things that we are doing. We have to have a good product and communicate about that product. So these are the resources for the presentation so far. And thank you very much for watching segment number 1. We'll be doing segment number 2 next. And remember, there is the final segment is a live Q&A with me coming up on October 13th. So we'll see you then for that. Go back and click some more, watch some more of these segments. I appreciate it.